Hey, what's up zombies internet? My name is the last Gambit and welcome to my ranking of 5 Nights at Freddy's games. Now this is something different, something new I wanted to do here for the channel. I haven't uploaded in a while, so if you're really excited to see me come back, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, family and dog, and subscribe to join the zombies internet army and turn on notifications so you'll be notified when I upload the next video to the channel. First of all, I want to thank you guys all so much for your incredible support on these last couple of videos. The Last of Us Part 2 rant is probably the biggest video I'll ever make, but I'm a big and passionate fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and it's something I really grew up with, just reading up all the lore, reading and creating my theories, and just watching, Mad Pat Game Theory and different videos, like playing the games, watching Let's Play, specifically from Markiplier, let's all be honest here, what other YouTuber we watch for Five Nights at Freddy's Let's Plays, and I really want to get into that community a bit more because I was used to be very active, and I got this new hit of passion towards the games, so I really want to rank all of them. I already pre-made my list, and this list is based on personal enjoyment. It is not. It has objective qualities to it, but overall, just like I was thinking of doing personal enjoyment, but I decided to go with objective qualities of these games and how well they're made, the amount of content they have, how scary are they terrifying? And we're gonna go from bottom to the top, and then the number one, of course, will be the objectively the best game in the series. So without further ado, without delaying this video any further, let's get into the game. Number 8, which is the last place on this list, is Five Nights at Freddy's World, or FNAF World. Scott himself has said multiple times that he himself doesn't like the game, and he thinks that the game itself is a fuck up, and he doesn't really like talking about it. He acknowledges its existence. He realizes that, yeah, he made the game, and the community didn't really love it, so let's just leave it in the past and move on. And I couldn't really agree more. FNAF World, where I can say give positive props where props is due, is for Scott having balls to take the FNAF franchise, this beloved franchise that people on the internet love worldwide and share content of, make YouTube videos, watch YouTube videos, make theories, watch theories, and just being engaged with the world and the lore of the FNAF universe, and to put a spin in it into a Pokemon styled strategy, but without the strategy part game, where the gameplay just sort of devolved into, basically, if we were talking about like Pokemon or different types of like RPG strategy games, it would most always be turn-based. Here it looks like a turn-based. The interface and the gameplay looks turn-based when you combat like enemy opponents. But play mechanics is like anyone can attack whenever, and it just creates this clusterfuck of things happening on the screen, and a lot of players, especially new beginner players, have no idea what's going on. Are they even playing the game right? The boss fights, sometimes they're downright broken to being OP to being like very easy to beat. The only good merit and the only fun thing about it is gathering the animatronics and playing as your favorite animatronics, and I think that's the biggest call to that video game that people really like and enjoy. But that's just a feature where like this is a poor man version of Pokemon, because you don't really find them per se in the open world that you explore. It just pops up on the screen randomly at random intervals, like a new challenger is approached, and then you battle him, and if you beat him, you collect the animatronic. Sometimes these animatronics, they're very easy to beat, just like 2 or 3 hits. Sometimes they're very difficult to where you can't even beat them. So the balancing in this game objectively is poorly handled, and even after like 2 mega updates that add lots and lots of content to the game, there was love and passion within this project, and that's what I commend Scott. And it's a huge leap to something out of nowhere that nobody ever expected. So with that surprise factor and just the novelty of collecting animatronics, and to being able to play as different animatronics and maybe traveling around the open world. Also, let's not argue positive things about the game, but that's about it. The story is very meta. It's a bit too much meta. The only meta part that is actually interesting and very amusing to the players, where you fight Scott himself and he's the character from his game. There is no pause button. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But I think he should have left it at that. I mean, Update 2 was just a glorified marketing ploy for Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, and the only reason I believe people play that version is because they wanted to see the voice of Baby, to see the story about the Henry character, because at the time Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes came out and we understood who William Afton, aka the purple guy, is, who Henry is, who Charlie is, and etc. and etc. And that's pretty much all the novelty that FNAF World has to it. Gameplay, it's meh. Story is something completely unrelated that I don't think it's even considered to be part of the FNAF universe, so automatically for the fans it's boring. This game tried to please many people that ended up pleasing no one. We should just totally leave it in the past. Let's not mention it. So coming in number 7 is what I have. It's Ultimate Custom Night, aka the Super Smash Bros. Where all characters are in and you survive in this epic collection extravaganza of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. Basically what I call FNAF World done again, but this time, in a first-person horror setting and with the gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 mixed with 2. Now this game... Now, again, novelty for FNAF World in this game is that they're free to play. That's immediately very cool, and that's pretty fun, to be honest. But the problem is this game isn't scary. But something tells me this game wasn't meant to be fully on scary. I think Scott realizes that. Maybe just first couple of nights when you play, just being at this novelty of this new horror game from Scott, and you just get terrified in the beginning. But later it's actually way more funnier than scary, except like the ending where you understand about the Golden Freddy and the girl, and that this is William Afton's hell and he's trapped in hell for eternity, which I guess it's an interesting premise to set your story in, but it's not something that I would explore fully. I think he should have just died, at the end of, well, spoiler alert, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. But I think that's it. We should have heard from William Afton, not really play as him. I mean, and I think it was objectively, it was a very predictable plot. Oh, look, 50 animatronics, you're stuck in this purgatory from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Every time you open up a new night, you repeat the nightmare, and that basically is eternal hell that William Afton is stuck for his sins in the real world. And you see the Golden Freddy is the one pulling the strings. Now, the character-wise, there's not much. I guess Old Man Consequences is the only thing that gives you most of the story and has sort of a character within it, but that's neither here or there, just the game's pride, like 8-bit, whatever. The gameplay is very, very, very complicated, and I cannot say it's, it has way too many things going on at the same time. It's mixing everything from FNAF 1 to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, all of the animatronics from those games, and then you just surviving from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. I mean, 50-20 mode, let alone, sounds insane, and I don't think many people have beaten that mode up until this day. Dogco did, and that's why we got the Five Nights at Freddy's interview with Scott Cawthon, which was pretty cool. That was awesome. That was legit awesome. And that was but the game overall doesn't have a lot of value besides, I'll waste my time for a couple of hours on this thing before I do something better later, and while I wait. And even the humongous extreme Five Nights at Freddy's fans, which I used to be myself, I mean, there's a lot of fun to be had, but the game is all over the place. That's my biggest issue, sort of like this video, actually. But, the game could have been executed better, but it was just there for the celebration of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. But the problem arises because they try to fit into the lore and the story of the legit Five Nights at Freddy's games, and instead of just being what this is supposed to be, this non-canon, just this free-to-play adventure as Scott released for everybody to celebrate the years and years of the release of Five Nights at Freddy's games, mixing all the gameplay, and of course, specific gameplay elements that were created specifically for other games, such as Five Nights at Freddy's 3 or Five Nights at Freddy's 2, like the mask and stuff, work in those scenarios as Scott's. But when you try to merge them in literally every other Five Nights at Freddy's type gameplay except Sister Location, because you can't move, just sort of meshes into complete chaos. And just looking at one playthrough on YouTube of 50-20 mode, and for example, if you watch Dogco, because he's the one who beat it and has the entire video of him beating the 50-20 mode, Yeah, that's not really it's just chaos, and most of the case you have no idea what's happening. But if you're one of those gamers who really wants to mentally kill themselves and just challenge everything around them, basically Dark Souls fanatics, Ultimate Custom Night is free on Steam, so I definitely advise you to try it out if you're that psychomaniac who does that sort of thing. Let's get into number 6. At number 6, we have Five Nights at Freddy's 3, aka, out of the original 4, easily the weakest game in the series. Now, I remember just from the hype when we got the teaser trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, hype was through the roof. People were theorizing that this animatronic is called Savage and or Salvage, whatever, and he's an ugly. Yes, let's use that word. Instead of all Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, and they're all just merged into this one Frankenstein creature that you're gonna run around this pizzeria that's under lockdown and you have to defend yourself, while also uncovering the pieces and the lore and the story of the game. Well, this one animatronic hunts you down, and then from the teaser trailer, we also it was sort of false advertising, because but not really, not really. I doubt it. It really wasn't, because the animatronics were in the game and do what they were trying to do. It's well executed. What Scott was trying to pull with Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was well executed, but it wasn't interesting nor scary, and that's the problem. This game has the most underwhelming jump scare I think of any video game ever. Ever. It's not even a jump scare. First of all, it warns you. For example, when you look to your door on the left, and if Stringtrap is there, you'll see his head, so you'll know if you move to the right or open up a monitor, be it the monitor where you look at the cameras or the system restart menu. You know he'll just walk towards you. Instead of like a jump scare where he jumps towards you, just sort of like, hey, what's up, dude? I'm gonna walk towards you slowly now with a grin and open eyes, which I think are scary qualities if you're 12, but that's pretty much it. Or if he's gonna jump scare you from the right side of your office, it's sort of, you see him like literally run past your screen, and then that's like your warning. Okay, so when I exit the camera, I'm dead, and the jump scare is just sort of him bouncing his head up and forth, and it's not even like him lunging at you. So the danger's in there, and the atmosphere, objectively, I think it was also very poorly handled, because the game doesn't look or feel scary. I think just like with the coloring and the color scheme of it being yellow and green, I believe those and the greens really didn't help with the atmosphere and the horror factor of Five Nights at Freddy's. This is where Scott really experimented with the sound design. Basically, when you hear Springtrap entering the vent, and when he exits the vent, or when he walks around the building, you can hear his footsteps and his groaning noises. And then lore-wise, you get interesting what do those groaning noises mean. Hey, why is there a mouth that looks like human remains inside Springtrap? But then, of course, as the story goes on and the cutscenes, the 16-bit cutscenes happen, you understand that, oh, that's William Afton inside there, and he's dead or possessed, and Springtrap is alive through that soul possession or remnant possession. The lore is going in way different to many locations. I'm not gonna go into detail. I'm just covering the games here in this like mini review slash ranking separately, like their standalone experiences. But when in comparison, I mean, if Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was the standalone game, and the first and second game before that never happened, this is the first time the world was introduced to the universe of Five Nights at Freddy's and the games itself, and Five Nights at Freddy's 3 happened to be Scott's first Five Nights at Freddy's game, I think there'd be a lot more novelty to it, and it would be way more interesting than it ended up being, because this game is only difficult. And this is not difficult in like the game design where like you know it's your fault when you mess up. This game is difficult simply for the sake of being difficult. It's completely random. It's completely like unexplored. It's completely oh, is Springtrap gonna go in this vent? I don't know how the AI is programmed. If he does, cool. If he doesn't, and sometimes the vent will either take 2 seconds to close or like 4 seconds to close. And if that 4 seconds, well, shit, buddy, you're out of luck, because Springtrap is half and half. He can decide to stay in that one camera in the vent for like 2 seconds and immediately leave you, or stay for a while, which gives you a time to close down that vent access point. But again, it's all left to random chance, and that's where I hate in game design. Things being left up to random chance and taking ability and control away from the player. I want when I die and fuck up, I want to be the guy that I know I'm the one who fucked up. The game is challenging, well balanced, and I need to understand and strategize on how to handle the challenge. And if I can beat it, and when I die, when I fuck up, I want to know that I did that. It's my own fault, not the game's core design being the fault that I'm gonna constantly die because it's all up to random chance. The only place where I accepted random chance was beating the 1020 mode on Five Nights at Freddy's 2 or 420 mode on Five Nights at Freddy's or God forgive 5020 mode on Ultimate Custom Night, because that's just chaos and every single game mechanic and gameplay part that exists in the game is thrown at you at the same time. So if you do beat it, I do believe it's up to luck, and I do firmly believe that those modes, no matter how much you game test them, I don't think they're supposed to be beatable, but I guess it's human ingenuity and human creates, the other human can solve it. But be stuff again, gameplay wise, AI, enemies, all, and just like the gameplay, being left to random chance is dumb, and every control should be in the control of the player, regardless of what the issue is. So that's why I really did like Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and on top of that, the story, the only good part of it and the messaging behind it is the story mode and how the souls left the animatronics and now they're in this internal peace with a good ending. And the suspension of disbelief is also required a bit more than usual when you enter numbers in the wall tiles in your office. There was a lot of weird steps, and it gave us more character with Shadow Bonnie, which is a simple Easter egg in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, ended up being one of the most important characters. Like, who knew? Gameplay, so it's all up to random chance. I mean, specifically after night 5, it's all up to random chance, and doing aggressive nightmare mode is downright torture. And the game didn't really live up to the expectations, because the first game was great, the second game was even better because it built off of the first game. But the third game just decided to go in a different direction and be more story oriented and gameplay focused and actual building good like graphics for a horror atmosphere, doing good sound design and music for that horror to build you up like the first game did incredibly well, like near perfect. And even though it had one animatronic, decided to be complicated and everything was left to random chance. For example, the Phantom animatronics are the most random jump scares. They don't kill you, granted, but they're a path to you losing and dying, and when the game is actively pushing you to go through a path of losing instead of being fair, that's where I have an issue with it. And overall, Five Nights at Freddy's 3, it's a fun game you can play simply for the story, and that's the only believe I saving grace on just Springtrap's design and a couple of like graphical features that I really like, but that's pretty much it. So coming in number 5, we have and this is where I'm starting to start losing people, and that's Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. I'm really not a big fan of this game. In fact, I really dislike this game. I dislike this game to its core. I was never really a huge fan of this game besides the story. I mean, there's very great quality here. This is where Scott actually had a thing called budget, and we had professional voice actors and a story with a beginning, middle, and end with acts and stuff, which is pretty cool. And for the first time ever, I believe, a satisfying conclusion within the Five Nights at Freddy's universe in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. And basically, this game, content-wise, is filled. First of all, the game is free, which is automatical plus over Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which is $8. It has, I guess, 3 times the amount of content that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 has, and there's so much things to do, from being a tycoon-style pizzeria game where you get to build your own pizzeria, through the story-wise and gameplay-wise, that part of the gameplay, which I guess we have to focus on, that it's a tycoon game and it's really called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. That should have been the main attraction and the main focus of the game. Not really just sort of a big area where you place and stuff. There's not really stuff happening besides lawsuits, and that's the only way negative gameplay can impact you. And may also not having money, going bankrupt. That's also one of the endings of the game, which is pretty hilarious. Again, this gameplay mechanics that I thought Scott should have focused on is basically the audio stimuli that you do when Henry tells you on the mixtape, on the videotape, and you're sitting in this dark room with the animatronic and you don't know he was gonna jump on you, and you see him moving, you obviously realize something is wrong, you are gonna die, but like you proceed with a salvage anyway. Those moments specifically, and then the audio cues. Scott couldn't pick the most terrifying things he can possibly find. I swear to God, he found those audio cues from the deep web and downloaded those audio files to put him in the game. I swear that's how that went. But like, that's part of the gameplay I really did enjoy. And besides the story and doing the lore keeper ending and doing those like mini Easter eggs to get to said lore keeper ending, and doing those salvage is the things that I really enjoyed in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. For example, the survivable Five Night things, which returns, sitting in front of a computer, surviving a... But this time, it's not a timer from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., it's certain tasks that you need to complete, and then you can only complete the task. When you complete all the tasks, you basically beat that part of the game, and then you proceed into salvage. What I think Scott should have focused on more here, because the game is not scary, and the jump scares in just objectively looking, comparing them to the older games, are terribly made. I mean, I don't know what Scott did within the engine this time, because the jump scares really don't mix well with the actual interior design of your office. And basically, when the animatronics are in front of your face, they look really, really pixelated, which is weird, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of animation. It just sort of like looks like, well, like for example, the first 4 games, it looks like actual animatronics that are animated with a jump scare animation when you fail and die. Here, it's more like a JPEG image, just a poorly rendered 480p JPEG image, just like, shuffling around the screen. That's like the entire jump scares of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, and the only place where I believe they're well executed jump scares are again during the salvage things when they lunge at you. But even there, they're just sort of awkwardly animated, and the things that really save the salvage part is just the general atmosphere, the sound design, the noise. It's just this feeling of pure being on edge and dread mixing at the same time while these audio cues are happening. Although even that falls into the predictable like gameplay where it's like, oh yeah, after the first 2 or 3, he's gonna try to jump scare me, and that's where I need to tase him. So that's like, that also falls there. But just looking through the atmosphere, the sound design, the graphics in that specific section, and just the jump scare in general, it's all well made. But like the gameplay, sitting in the office completing tasks as they come to your left and right, these different hallway corridors, it's not really well made. The only part is that the animatronics talk to each other, and they talk to you once they get close to you, and after they jump scare you, they say a nice little line that adds more bit to the lore and story that people can theorize over. And also the designs, I'm really not a big fan. I think Scott went a bit too overboard making them look, I don't know, creepy, that they ended up just being more funny. For example, I definitely prefer, now this part is subjective, I definitely prefer the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 design of Springtrap over the Springtrap in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, and to an extent Ultimate Custom Night. I don't know, he just sort of looks weird there, like, and the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 version looks a bit more detailed. I don't know if that's just basically because his jump scare is a JPEG image instead of an actual animation. Now, I'm not really familiar with like click team game development, but it does sort of, maybe it is an animation, but then again, my point still stands, and it looks awkward, and it's not scary. That's the prime point. And the jump scare noise is not terrifying. It's more like, it reminds me more of the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 jump scare, which is just sort of like, sounds like heavy metallic breathing, than an actual terrifying noise that you hear when you get jump scared. So that's pretty much it. Again, that's all I have to really mention, and I don't really see even people who are easily scared. I don't see them being scared by this game except for the salvage parts, and even you can skip those. You can't get the perfect ending, but you can skip them nonetheless. But what Freddy Fazbear Peculiar Simulator did way better than the third and Ultimate Custom FNAF World is just how it handled its tone, how it handled its story, and the salvage parts are worth the praise alone, and and it's filled with content to do and stuff to do outside multiple mini games that are playable multiple times where you can gain nothing or gain rewards. So it adds that fun factor and replay value than, for example, FNAF 3 or Ultimate Custom Night. So that's it that I have to say for Freddy Fazbear Peculiar Simulator, so let's get into number 4. So coming in number 4, baby, we have Five Nights at Freddy's 2. A game that the player base, the fan base, and Scott himself, I think, owe a lot to besides the first game. Now, I have to say that I do enjoy this game. I enjoy the atmosphere. Again, the sound design, this is when Scott was still really experimenting, but this experiment ended up being a successful because it's very well done. The audio cues are done, and when the animatronic get close to you, that weird noise, bell, music plays, and just adds tension and atmosphere at the same time, which is very required for horror immersion of the player. That's pretty cool, that's pretty well done, I'm really excited about that. It also, adds multiple features, maybe at the time a bit too much. Basically, what I consider Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is basically the first game on steroids. More rooms, no doors, putting on a mask, 10 animatronics. I mean, just looking at the custom night menu, it's like 10 animatronics, but objectively, it's, let's consider all of them. The endoskeleton then sometimes appears. Yeah, he doesn't do anything, just an Easter egg, but it's an animatronic that enters a vent nonetheless. That's 11. Number 12, we have Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. That's 13. We have the puppet, which isn't in the custom night menu, but he basically just depends on you, winding up the music box. So AI-wise, he'll just kill you regardless. He's at 20 always, I'm guessing. But basically, it all boils down to winding up the music box, because if you don't, there's literally no gameplay thing that you can do to counteract him unless you didn't keep that thing wound up. So that's actually more like, and JJ, that's actually 15 animatronics, but those really don't do anything directly to you. They're just sort of Easter eggs that appear sometimes in your office or in the vents and stuff, and that's pretty much it. And of course, but these 10 animatronics that actually can kill you. And interesting fact, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is the only game where it lets you manipulate the AI in the custom night menu of Golden Freddy. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Even though Golden Freddy in this game is also a ghostly figure where his head can appear in the hallway and then he appears and disappears and then his head jump scares you once he's in your office. Gameplay mechanics wise, this game is very insane. Now, I do believe FNAF 2 is the first game on steroids, and it's completely fair. Every mechanic has a purpose. I firmly believe that anything you do in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, if you make a mistake, if you make that error and die, I believe it's not game taking control away from you and leaving it up to random chance. I fully believe that's your own mistake, because there's always a specific time where you have to put down that camera and immediately put your mask on. After night 3, that literally should become your second nature, and you should train yourself just pure gameplay wise, abusing the mechanics so you can survive for longer until we reach that 6 a.m. goal. Also, I do believe from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. is when time is for some reason, I feel like very slowly. I know time is equal through every a.m., through every hour. It's like a minute, I believe. But for some reason, I always feel like the 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. and 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. is completely slow. It literally lasts forever. Night 6 can a bit chaotic, but I do believe it's well-made, controlled chaos, as everything is still in your basically grasp. First of all, you're just supposed to use a flashlight when you lie down at Foxy. So basically, this is where Five Nights at Freddy's games in general have a problem, where mechanics just sort of evolve into how to abuse the gameplay mechanic perfectly so you can beat the night. Basically, gameplay mechanic, I think Scott's intention was, hey, you can use the lights in every camera, but you just end up using your flashlight in the hallway to flash Foxy, because besides the wind-up music box area where you're literally forced to go because you don't want to die, there's no reason to check any other cameras. Now, that's basically that feature, which is one of the main attractions, the main innovative feature that the Five Nights at Freddy franchise can do, is looking at things through cameras, sort of evolves into just looking at one or two camera maximums for just surviving, because then you realize through gameplay wise alone they're all pointless, because every time you open up your camera, wind up the music bar, close it down, you immediately put the mask on, so it's completely irrelevant what's in front of you, because you're gonna throw that mask on regardless. And the ones that are not fooled by the mask, for example Fox, you just need to press control multiple times until you shine him and disorient him or whatever. Basically, gameplay wise, it just sort of falls apart. Balloon Boy, fuck that kid, by the way. Fuck his gameplay, fuck his story, fuck Balloon Boy in general. Sorry, Scott. I fully firmly believe you just created that character to be a troll, because nobody fucking likes Balloon Boy, man. Nobody likes Balloon Boy. That's pretty much all I have to say on Five Nights at Freddy's 2 story-wise and lore-wise. Again, this is the first game, but on steroids. We see the purple guy for the first time. We see the 5 children that died. We see the first location from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. We see the location Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and all these 8-bit mini-games. And they give a lot of story. And Scott still to this day firmly believes that story-wise, game theories, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 video really nailed down most of the points that he was trying to make. And that's like one of the closer things we have through a fully complete story / timeline of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. Shane saying at that point that video is completely outdated, but if you guys want to watch some really cool theories that pull some things like I can't believe I didn't think of that moments, just go watch Game Theory's Five Nights at Freddy's videos. You'll find a lot of fun. But I'm guessing if you're watching this video and you're already a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, I'm guessing you already have. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 did a lot for the community, and it created one of the more challenging indie games that people can try out. I mean, people were doing all of those 10 different challenges in the custom night menu like it was literally Dark Souls. Hey, look at me beating 1020 mode. Hey, look at me beating the Cupcake Challenge, for example. And I love the element of rewarding the player with each little plushie of each one of those 10 challenges that you complete, and they appear in your office every time you play another night. That's pretty dope. And I wish that feature returned. I really do, but it is what it is. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a great game. Horror-wise, atmosphere-wise, well done. Jump scares, unlike the first game, once you will get used to them, and they will become, not scary, but then the gameplay and the challenge, the fair and fun challenge of it holds the game up once it stopped being scary. And I'm like talking once you're at night 5 repeating the same night for 10,000 times because you died. That's where like the horror and the jump scares get a bit boring, and I'm glad he really didn't reuse the audio from the jump scare noise in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, because personally I really don't like that noise. It just gives me a headache. It's way too loud. So that's all I have to say on Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Definitely give this game a try. It's a great game. It's number 4 though, so if it's a great game, but there's like the 4th place. Now we're getting to games I really enjoy. Basically, number 3, we have Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, aka the biggest leap in gameplay since, the first game. We're moving around here. We are hiding. We are sliding, closing things open like it's Outlast or Amnesia. And this time we're running away from the fan favorite Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics. This is all you want. First of all, I want to talk about the less is more and the tone and the balance. And just basically, first of all, let's talk about the pacing of the story. The game is the shortest in the series, and it's literally only is 5 nights. Okay, 6 nights. Technically, 6 nights basically after the DLC, which was the custom night, which was free, by the way, completely released. We have 6 nights, but basically the game is full story from beginning till the end of 5 nights. Basically, there's no special 6th or 7th night. That's pretty much all of it. Content-wise, the game has less content than most of these games, but where this game really shines is its gameplay mechanics. It's incredibly well-written and well-paced story with actual characters such as hand units, such as Baby, like actual sort of interactable characters because they talk to you. I mean, you're still a silent protagonist, but this time you actually move around and hide and stuff. You actually use your flashlight. It feels like a smaller budget Outlast game, but it's definitely way better and more scarier than Outlast 2, I can tell you that much. And just the horror. First of all, the atmosphere is overall, if we're looking fully, the atmosphere is well done. It's just not well done as some of the other games, but overall, it's pretty enjoyable. The atmosphere and the jump scare noise. I want to talk about jump scare noise. I think it's a well balance of being scary, creepy, and robotic at the same time when it happens, and you actually do get terrified when it happens, but it's not too loud where it just becomes obnoxious, just like it's not even scary, but then you just start hurting your head, man, after playing for a longer period of time. So if you're gonna play this game for a longer period of time, it's definitely more friendly focused by doing that. Also, the gameplay mechanics is still, I do believe Scott is heavily pushing the limits of the click team engine within this game, because this is insane. You're actually moving around, you're actually hiding, you're actually closing and opening. It's not a door, it's more like a thing with holes in it. I still don't know. It's literally a hiding spot under the desk that somebody crafted before you that died in this location. And it also, I want to talk about the balancing of the tone within the story. This game is half comedic and half scary. How does that work? Well, I'll tell you, it works masterfully well. I don't know how Scott managed to pull this off, and the writing of the characters and the pacing of the story definitely helps. But I still don't believe, like, besides the writing, I don't think the pacing is the main story. I think the pacing was a bit off. The, like, jokes and horror at the same time would still work pretty well, especially from writing point. I don't know if Scott wrote the script himself for the story, if he helped, but it's definitely a thing worth admiring, because, and I think a lot of, be it indie game developers or AAA game developers that are making horror games but that are trying maybe add some levity and comedic elements in their horror games, definitely use Five Nights at Freddy's sister location as your homework, because it's firmly well done. From talking to the hand dude in the elevator when they had these moments of levity, from getting the legendary exotic butters to getting like the casual bongos, and everything is just so fun and memorable. And when your lines and fun are memorable to be memed around, mentioned still to this day. I mean, Final Fantasy's sister location released in 2016 and now it's 2020, so 4 years later and people are still quoting you. You know, in the writing of your characters you did something right. Unless that wasn't your intention, then of course again you did something very, very wrong in game design. But this is something right, because I do believe Scott was really pushing towards, and just shows in the writing. The voice actors, since this is the first game I believe where it actually has voice acting besides Scott himself playing the phone guy, they're all very well done. I don't know where Scott would find these people. I don't know if any of these people are actually famous voice actors before Sister Location, but they're definitely display a lot of talent, and I wish to see them in more, like in your AAA games. They're amazing people, and they're incredible voice actors from what I hear, playing these animatronics. For example, Baby and like Funtime Freddy. Those are the standouts that I want to mention. The custom night is pretty well. It brings us to our familiar. Basically, if this was another sit in your office, I think people would really get bored of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. But the novelty of it is more, it's treated like an Easter egg, as a secret ending, and that's got confirmed that it's not canon, but it's a secret ending, especially physically created for this game and this game alone. And then the cutscenes, and if you beat 1020 mode in like the custom night of Sister Location, get a pretty dope ass cutscene that leads us into Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. And I see basically in that cutscene that Scott was still using the design of Springtrap from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, so I'm still don't get why he didn't just use that design in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Why did he feel like he had to change it? Because it's nice. I really prefer the third game though. And introduce us to a character of Michael Afton. That's also pretty cool. Sister Location is overall a great game. There's only one 8-bit mini game, and it actually requires critical thinking and understanding of the mechanics and how the children work and what cupcake goes where. Obviously, the challenge and fun part of the game is you figuring that out for yourself. But of course, we're in a modern day where we have YouTube, so if you're really lazy at doing that and you just want to get to that secret ending, just pull up a YouTube tutorial or something. The custom night is pretty well done. Like the bonus like the bonus menu that was introduced in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is pretty cool, where we get to see the animatronics and stuff. I wish he left in the jump scares, like where you can scroll through multiple jump scares of each animatronic from such a location, but it is what it is, I guess. But you get to replay the word exotic butters, which is located in that same menu, which is the best feature and just gives the game of the year 10 out of 10 immediately. I mean, there's no discussion on that. It's pretty dope. It's pretty cool. The content-wise, it's a bit lacking, but the story, the gameplay, I mean, it's not like perfect as this mastery that all indie and AAA game developers should look at, because this is a low-budget indie game, and it does show faults within the engine and just basically how the game was designed. You can see this game was made by one person, but you can look at that from the negative perspective, or you can look at, you have this entire area that you can explore, hide from the animatronics, close and open stuff, you have voice acting and everything. A lot of quality that AAA video game horror games have, but it's an indie game with a small budget and made by one person. Let that sink in. Let's look at it from that perspective. The game is incredible, and mixing the levity of comedy and actual pure horror is also well made. The night 4 being completely different from anything the other 3 nights, and basically it adds replay value because every night you're doing something different. You think you're gonna fall into that same and the first 2 nights are, I don't know, Scott built them intentionally to be very similar, because you can think you're gonna be like a regular Five Nights at Freddy's game where you fall in this pattern of completing a stat that the hand unit tells you, but then it turns into, oh, go fix this, oh, something went wrong here, oh, something went wrong here, boom, you're scooped up and you're dead. And also like the moments where you pop JPEG popcorn in your mouth and just watch a soap opera, that's a masterpiece alone. This game is great. The custom night, again, the challenge is there. It's enjoyable. It's more of the same Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay. We sit in the office and use multiple gameplay mechanics, from viewing to using sound and audio cues to survive. I would definitely recommend, if you want more in-depth explanation how the gameplay mechanics work on this custom night of your sister location, watch the Markiplier complete in the 2020 mode. He really explains all the gameplay mechanics pretty well, and way better than I did, because I can't beat that mode. I beat like a couple of the challenges, but that's it. I ain't beating anything else. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say around sister location. So let's get into number 2. So coming in number 2, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. Boom! Now, just due to the process of elimination, you can understand what the first place is once you eliminate all the things that I already said and one game that I didn't mention. But before we get into that, let's talk about the masterpiece that Scott Cawthon created right here, right now. That masterpiece is the very first Five Nights at Freddy's game, which dropped August 2014 on the Shura for $5 with a pre-demo that was free to play, basically having the first 2 nights available to play. That's pretty cool. So basically what am I gonna mention here? Let's mention how it changed the landscape of indie horror games probably forever. It normalized making and putting sound above the actual gameplay, and just focusing a lot of gameplay details on sound. Later games really pushed that mechanic forward, but the first game really started with the idea of doing that, because with the kitchen camera being closed off, and you can just hear the noises, or that you can hear the footstep noises of the animatronics coming or going away from your door. From the intense creepy atmosphere that builds up on night 4 and night 5, once you start seeing the animatronics when they get closer and closer to your office, like they start twitching and making moaning noises, which also helps with the gameplay to make it more scary and more like immersive. But it also pushes the story forward and the lore of understanding why are these animatronics moaning, and for those very average players who don't understand the story and the lore and the universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, they can understand the basic concept, hey, that these animatronics are not just malfunctioning and need to stuff people inside because they think they're endoskeleton suits, but because there's something much more bigger and much more sinister going on here. The way that Scott presented the story of Five Nights at Freddy's is absolutely brilliant. In indie games with a limited budget, it's absolutely brilliant how it's handled, and for all of the developers around the world, Scott Cawthon should be like your success story that you will mention and that you will try to be like it. Five Nights at Freddy's was born out of pure criticism on his last couple of games, and taking cues and ideas from his older games. Gameplay mechanics was also brilliant, and forming it into its own unique entity. That was pretty cool. And it also introduced us to our fan favorite animatronics of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, and of course the legendary Easter egg Golden Freddy, or as that basically in the game files he was called Yellow Bear. As we know, that Golden Freddy name was given to the community, and by then Scott sort of made it, established in canon in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. This game changed the landscape of horror gaming. First of all, it launched multiple careers of different YouTubers, be it, I don't know, Jacksepticeye, Markiplier. I mean, PewDiePie was already very, very popular, but his popularity grew even further, I believe, once he started playing those games. And basically, like, it launched Scott into a whole new generation for gamers and introduced us to these indie and a lot of indie game developers, thanks to Five Nights at Freddy's and thanks to Scott Cawthon. They were inspired to make their own fan games, and we have a lot of bad and a lot of great FNAF fan games, and to think a lot of those creators probably wouldn't have even started developing games or getting into that if it weren't for Five Nights at Freddy's. Also, I have to mention the beautiful rule, those beautiful 69 drawings of FNAF characters. Masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. It's an objective masterpiece. And I will also mention that the first Five Nights at Freddy's game is an objective masterpiece through story and gameplay standards. Now, of course, we can talk about graphics, but we can, and we will. Graphics are serviceable, in fact, from basically understanding how it was developed and what engine it was using. It looks pretty good. I mean, for a game that doesn't even have a settings menu, I think it looks pretty good. And the lesser graphics give it a bit more atmosphere and a bit more spook factor. Animatronics, for what it's worth, they're pretty detailed, and the animations of the jump scare, I would arguably say, are the second most scariest in the series, along with the jump scare noise. I'll get into that later. But it's from the mechanics of turning on lights and closing doors, it's also very well, and in lore and story-wise established this is a smaller pizzeria chain that they don't have a pretty bigger budget, so wasting a lot of time in the camera or on the lights or closing down doors drains the powers from the building, and in gameplay gives you another gameplay element that if you use, and you pretty much guarantee that yourself will die by power outage. And it creates this, what I call the cycle of FNAF, and it's pretty well done. Basically, you start off, okay, you see there's a power meter, okay, if you use your cameras or you use your lights or close doors, it drains your power even further. But then there's animatronics coming towards you, but you need to check where they are. So you check where they are, then you become a bit more panicked because you don't understand mechanics just yet, and it creates this utter state of panic that the player is constantly in, and constantly tensions are always. Scott builds up the tension in Night, and he keeps it there. Night 5 still defines that because of the actual phone call, since he basically, it's insane. It's legit insane, in my opinion. Because the cycle continues. You look at the camera, you waste power. Then you get a bit more scared, so you check the lights. You waste more power. And then you close the doors to waste more power, and while one door is closed, you check the camera again just in case to see if the animatronics are or aren't there. Basically, that all comes into the circle where you'll eventually end up in a jump scare that'll make you scream. And I love the design of Five Nights at Freddy's there. And I'm sorry for my voice, I sound weird, I hear that. So Five Nights at Freddy's 1, I can talk about. I think I'll even make video, video essay describing my love for Five Nights at Freddy's. The game is pretty cool, and I have nothing really bad to say about it. Gameplay wise, everything is great, everything fits in. The animatronics and the jump scare noise and just the atmosphere leading up to the jump scare is pretty good, which gives the jump scare and the scare itself a lot more impact than it was just jump scare for the sake of jump scares. The atmosphere is great, the use of the audio cues and sound design is great, and I have to commend Scott for doing that. That's all I have to say about Five Nights at Freddy's 1. It's an absolute masterpiece. Should you download it? Heck yes. Go support Scott. I mean, just for the sake of, if you didn't play the game, support this indie developer. Just for the sake of, he's a great person, and for what it's worth, these are good games for what they're trying to be. in fact beating a lot of people in the genre. So coming in number 1, by due to the process of elimination, you already know what number 1's gonna be, and that's Five Nights at Freddy's 4. First of all, content-wise, let's cover content. You have the base 5 nights, and in every night you have mechanics. You go to the left door, you go through the right door, you go to the back, and you go to the front, the closet. That creates a rhythm. The rhythm is established in the first night, and it works. It's like, I feel like it's a Guitar Hero type rhythm game as you move along. Also, you sit in your middle of the room listening to sound cues. This is where sound cues became like the most important thing in Five Nights at Freddy's, where like Let's Players and streamers were having very trouble, doing their job of Let's Playing and streaming, because you need to be quiet as you need to focus on the sounds. But there's multiple sounds. There's a dog barking, there's a car pulling over, I think that's what that noise, and there's just this weird ambient noise that you don't know is coming from the outside. You don't know what is something in your house. Also, it's a great callback to the first game. Notice this. Left side in the first game, Bonnie comes to get you to the door. Left side in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, same thing, Nightmare Bonnie's at the door. And he's a bit more aggressive than Nightmare Chica, who comes less, but she comes from the right. And what else is on the right? There's something that you can't see, which is the kitchen, but you can hear her making a sandwich or something in there, which creates this. The game goes for a more bigger budget, modernized take on the first FNAF game, which I know using the term modernized is very weird, but stay with me because the games released 1 year apart from each other. In fact, by the time the 4th game released, it wasn't even a full year since the first game released. But bear with me. Besides those and then those, you have the 6th night, which is very difficult, and the 5th night decides to change things up from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. by basing you have to fight Nightmare Fredbear. No other Five Nights at Freddy's game did that. Besides, you can maybe count like Five Nights at Freddy's 3, but that's also falls in the categories the first 2 games did. Basically, you having 5 animatronics coming after you, but on that night specific it's 1, which is Five Nights at Freddy's 3 styled. So immediately in the first 4 nights the game mixes the elements of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Basically it's utter panic, because this game is also challenging, because just one audio error, basically it's not even a game audio error, it's your error not interpreting what the audio is supposed to be, which is either breathing or very close footsteps near your door, and that's the problem. You always need to differentiate the two. I think Scott in later updates made it pretty easy to underhear the said breathing, but back then people were having really difficulty with it, and I still believe that that wasn't the game's fault. We just didn't understand what the breathing sounded like when Five Nights at Freddy's 4 first came out. And then, besides those 4th night, you have a 7th Nightmare Night, which is an element that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 established. But the problem with the 3rd game is you had your base 5 nights and the Nightmare Night. In the first 2 games, you had your 7 nights, which was 5 nights, 6 bonus night, and the 7th custom night. Here, you have base 5 nights, you have a 6th night, and basically beating the 6th night also gives you the access to the good ending with the 5th game. I wouldn't call that the bad ending, it's just the ending of the story. The cutscenes that are done in the 8-bit style are also pretty well designed, as in they tell a complete narrative. And the narrative, we still, apparently Scott confirmed, the community still didn't interpret the ending pretty well, but it has a complete beginning, middle, and end. Well, the first 3 games, you can argue that Five Nights at Freddy's 3, but Five Nights at Freddy's 3 had that weird pacing within its story on how you access the good ending. Here, you just play through the story. Yeah, there's not a lot of Easter eggs, but the Easter eggs there service the story pretty well. I'm not gonna say even pretty incredibly well, by just putting either pills, either that thing, or either the plants right next to your bed at random intervals throughout the nights that you can see, if it appears. They're not always there, which gives you a theory what's happening right now. Are you actually in your room? Is this your imagination? Which I think at that point it's just you living your nightmare. I always believe that the name Nightmare animatronics in the game are a clear dead giveaway that you're just dreaming. because obviously you after the cutscene of Five Nights after the fifth night you pretty much understand why Nightmare Fredbear is only hunting you and only that animatronic in night 5 because you see what happens at the party. Basically, then this creates a good pacing for the story, and it also creates a good gameplay with story mix, which Scott has been doing incredibly well. And then, again, content-wise, you also have the 7th Nightmare Night, so you have a 6th night and a Nightmare Night, and then on top of that, an 8th night, which is the 20-20-20 mode. Obviously, there's no official custom night where you can customize your like animatronic from scratch, but let's be honest, does anyone really actually play around with that feature? People either put it like, oh, I'm gonna be crazy and I'm gonna put it at 0 and make it easy for myself, or it's gonna be actually torturing myself and giving me a challenge and going for that 20-20-20 mode completion. And then the Halloween update, which was free to play, by the way. Basically, when you buy Final Freddy's 4 now, you get the Halloween DLC, and with it you get more challenge modes, an extra night, and of course, what I failed to mention was fun with Plush Trap and fun with Nightmare Balloon Boy, which also utilizes the main baseline mechanics effectively. I will just say the fun with Plush Trap, the only where it falters is in the scare factor, but I think it's because for Balloon Boy and the Plush Trap, he changed the jump scare noise to sound much more higher pitched than what the actual animatronic sound within the Nightmare Nights, because they're like smaller and more cute animatronics, so I guess it fits the theme of the noise. But that's neither here or there. It's like not scary. That's subjective opinion though, what is scary and it's not. But I'm looking at objectively, the sound design is incredible, and it needs to be. This game needed to nail a sound design if it's gonna make sound an integral mechanic within its gameplay. And Scott nailed that pretty well, not gonna lie. The story has a nice pacing, as you don't have to pull like godlike Easter eggs just to find the hidden 8-bit cutscenes. They just play out, and you actually have text and dialogue, and characters communicate, and it also serves a great storytelling tool and actual character development that's outside of the lore and actual story from in the game from beginning till the end. Later, of course, we get like sexual occasion, we get an fish, and we get actual voice acting and people communicating, but it was a great step. And Five Nights at Freddy's 4, it's a great like roundabout what all the Five Nights at Freddy's games did, plus making it scary. For that example, that's why I think it's better than Ultimate Custom Night. It services the story, it services the gameplay well, but it creates its own unique and well-designed gameplay setting. Well, Five Nights at Freddy's, for example, Ultimate Custom Night just meshes multiple gameplay mechanics, and hopefully you somehow understand how to utilize it. Heck, even the phone guy himself makes cameo in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, as his voice is like all like this distorted, and I think it's turned upside down. But correct me wrong on that statement if it's not. It's just like a couple of clips of his voice, and it plays on the purple telephone in your room. I've been talking for like right an hour. Now, content-wise and graphics, obviously, since it's the newest game in the series at that time, and still looking at it, it has the best graphics, because the graphics not just like, yeah, you're gonna say, yeah, well, the graphics in such locations look prettier. I would disagree on Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. I think FNAF 4 beats it there. Such a location, yeah, you'll say that, but that's not what I mean by graphics. By graphics, I mean what I mean is the ambient and like just design of the house, and like the design of the animatronics, which I think is the most detailed design animatronics in the series, besides Springtrap and Five Nights at Freddy's 3. But I think the Nightmare animatronics look amazing, and they look like badass Terminators wearing animal costumes. That's pretty cool. Nightmare Fredbear's like stomach mouth design is incredible, and I wish it was utilized in gameplay, but it was just a cosmetic item. Like, and even the cupcake gets his little jump scare in like if you were sitting in the middle of the room and the Nightmare Chica is the one to approach you, and then like Freddy's gameplay is sort of, basically he tried to make the mechanic looking like the first game where he's barely in there, and only if you make like a mistake of ignoring him is where he comes and gets you, just like the first game. It's the same mechanic but just done differently on your bed. And again, it services the gameplay. It makes it more simpler because you always remember, because you can hear them coming, like the Freddy'S coming on your bed. But it creates a good like atmospheric mechanic because, oh wait, there's little nightmare Freddy's gathering, and that's pretty creepy, and they make a creepy noise. That's why that's why I objectively think that Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is the best in the series, and subjectively, I also believe, yeah, it's the best in the series because just like the graphics, the sound design, the gameplay. People do say that the gameplay becomes monotonous. That's also up to preference. Like what I find boring, you might not find boring. But objectively, I think the gameplay really services the idea of, checking, because every moment you go to that door and check is a moment of like hesitation. Do I turn on my light or do I close the door? That's also pretty well done, and that's like the main thing I want to mention. That's why I also obviously objectively think that it handles its gameplay way better, because it focuses more on the sound design and introduced for the first time in Five Nights at Freddy's series actual movement. Yeah, it's click to go somewhere. It's not WSD moving around, full free roam. But I think if it did have that full on, you can walk around the room. I don't think it would be that well made. I think the gameplay and what the gameplay was striving for, it achieved, and what the game wanted to do, it achieved, and what Scott was trying to do with his game, he achieved. He achieved with most of them, but here is where he was really experimenting with the sound design, from like the first to the second game, to different audio cues, different sound elements. Here they put in the forefront and make an integral part of your gameplay, which is very interesting. That also helps immerse the player even further. Definitely makes the player talk less. For example, streamers Let's Play, which immerses them into this horror atmospheric setting. You playing as a child in a bedroom in a nightmare can get cliche, but how the story is handled and how the characters are handled, for what limited development there is, we understand where most of those characters are like, and what our main guy, who I'm just gonna call our main character because I don't think we ever understood his actual full name, that we are playing as in the Nightmare realm, and with Fun with Plushtrap. Obviously confirmed the Jacko Chica and Jacko Bonnie and Fun with Balloon Boy are not canon, nor is Nightmare own, and his nights are great as well. But like the Halloween update isn't canon, but it's just a lot more content, which serves with my idea that the game objectively has the most content out of all the games in the series. It has the best story in the series. It has I'd say, the best ending in the series after Nightmare Night, which is still driving people insane with the box and everything. And I'm glad Scott never opened it, because I think if he did, I sort of remove what I just said about the ending on Nightmare Night, and an introduction of the Nightmare animatronic in Nightmare mode. That was pretty cool. So yeah, this is the entire video, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, share this video with your friends, family, and dog. Comment your ranking of the Five Nights at Freddy's games down in the comment section below. I will be responding, and you can guys tell me your objective or subjective thoughts of the Five Nights at Freddy's game, or why I'm wrong or why I'm correct. I'm always open to discussion, and remember, when I say a game is objectively better, I'm judging the game by its own merits and its own merits alone, and of course driving comparisons if comparison need be. For example, comparing it to the other game in the series. I'm not gonna go objectively and say the FNAF 4 is like the best game ever, but we have games like Amnesia: The Dark Descent or Outlast, for example, which are objectively better and well-made games. Now, spook and horror factor, that part is completely subjective. What you might find scary, I might not, and what I find scary, you might not. And that's it. So, of course, subscribe to join the Zombies Internet Army and turn on notifications so you'll be notified when I upload a brand new video to the channel. The next one, I don't know what it is, gonna be honest. This one's a long one. I'll think about it. See you in the next video, everyone, and bye!